Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dual Screens podcast. I am one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana, and with me, as always, it is Andy Esimakis. How are you, Andy?
I'm enjoying all this lovely downtime. I've been playing so many games these past couple of days, and I've done a lot of writing and a lot of time to reflect on PAX East and all the great friends we made there. Like our guest today. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. Before we get into the guest today, first of all, I hate you because not only do I have to work from home, I now have to work from home with a 4.5 and a 2.5-year-old constantly running around like a couple of crazy people. I yell more at them than I've yelled at anything in my entire life. My blood pressure goes up at least 10 points every single time they enter the room at this point. And it's day 3 of the quarantine.
That's what your wife must feel like on a daily basis.
Day 3. Yes, but
Day 3.
Day 3, Andy. With us this week, here to knead out all the juicy details, is Stefan Baier, Chief Operations Officer of Streamline Games and currently working his buns off on Bacon Switch, a couch co-op and PvP game where strange, adorable dough creatures are sacrificed to the guardians of dough. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, it's your morning. It's our evening. We are just doing the thing, Andy.
Globalization.
So you said buns in there, and I feel like
I did.
It's going to be a pun-heavy show.
Yes, it is.
Oh.
But I wasted so many great puns on my preview, so I'm just gonna refer back to that. I feel like I wanted to kill myself while I was because I felt like this is so bad. It's so bad.
So many.
But I really, but I really need that attention. So,
oh God,
that's and rough.
I think we'll do good. I mean, we've got 2 young dads. I've got a 3-year-old. You've got 2 kids. So that humor will definitely bring in the puns. We'll have to do it. It'll be adorable.
Adorable. Oh, man.
Oh no,
it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I just want my wife. I'm gonna have this moment where it's like the BBC interview, like with like the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old walks to the back door. I'm like, please let's not do that.
All right, put a rolling pin in that. For those of you that are new to the Dual Screens podcast, this is an interview show where Andy and I bring on an industry guest to tell us their story and to discuss their latest project. Everyone in the gaming industry, being it a programmer, an artist, a voice actor, whoever the hell it is, they got a story to tell, and we want to be their platform to do so. The Dual Screens podcast posts each and every Thursday on your podcast service of choice, including iHeartRadio and Spotify. You can also find this on YouTube at youtube.com/DualScreensTV, and of course, everything we do is on dualscreens.com. When we aren't interviewing awesome video game devs like Stefan, Andy and I also host the Dual Screens Gamescast every single Sunday night on twitch.tv/DualScreensStreams, which is a gaming news show that pits the most talked about headlines from Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, and wild cards and declares the biggest winners and losers of the week. And that posts each and every Monday right here on this very same channel. You don't even have to subscribe to multiple channels, people. It's one channel. How lazy can you be? Give us the subscription. Our first of 4 seasonal shows is also in full swing. Andy explains it all. It is the final episode coming up this week where Andy is going to surprise me with a topic of his choice.
Oh, I'm going to miss it so much. It's been such a great ride.
It was. It was an excellent, excellent show.
It was so good.
It was. He is going to explain something to me that I know nothing about, or at least he thinks I know nothing about. I probably know nothing about it because I'm an idiot. Please, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving us a review. It helps the show out tremendously, and we really, really need them. We need the reviews, guys. Get in there. If you're on Apple Podcasts, scroll down. Or if you're using your phone, all the way at the bottom, there's like those stars. Click it. Boom. Write review. You're done. And if you want to support us with your hard-earned cash, which I know might be a little tight now that everybody's forced to stay in their house and not work, but if you want to give it to us, we would appreciate it, just like our Patreon producer, Colton, and the apprentice, Nestler. You go to patreon.com/NDS podcast. Remember, every single dollar helps, and for just $1, you get a bonus episode every month, and you get to vote the topic of that episode, and you get to go hang out in our Discord with us and the developers of our developer guests from our shows. All right, that's all the fun stuff. That's all that housekeeping stuff. It's out of the way now, Andy. We did it.
I'm so glad.
That was probably the best I've ever done on it.
Yeah, you were so energetic and full of pop and spice. I love it.
Oh God!
Always do that. Just always do that version of it.
I think you're doing good from home. Those kids, they really help you stay focused.
That's a word. Focused is a word. Angry and attentive at every detail is also another thing. You can
channel that anger.
Sheer rage.
Jax, get off your sister. Get off of her. Get off of her. Get off of her. Please get off. All right, go in timeout. Go in timeout.
I only have one.
I think we should start this off with I'm going to say a pun.
Oh God, here we go.
A little joke.
Yes, please.
I think just to kind of break through the anxiety and the social stress we've all been encountering in our day-to-day lives lately.
Good idea.
So, gentlemen, here's a little joke for you. What do you say to someone if you see them coughing next to you and they don't cover their mouths?
I got it.
What is it?
That cough is the yeast of your problems.
That's good. But you know what? You see, that's great. I love it. But for off the cuff, that's really great. But that sounds like something you would say because it shows concern for the other person. But if it was me in that position where I don't care about people and I detest human contact by any means, what I would say, and I think Stefan would appreciate even more so, is Ciabatta, stay away from me.
Oh God.
I don't want none of that. Yeah, I know it's bad.
Wow.
It's really bad.
That's like bad humor level 10, dude.
It is. It's like the cringiest of the cringe. And it's like written down here and everything.
Oh my God.
It's memorialized in a Google document.
You have a list of them, like they can keep coming.
I do. It's an actual list. It's a real list.
I should write that down. Like I assault my team with bad puns every once in a while too. Like if I get a chance in a meeting, I'll just do it to see some face palm. It's great.
Yeah, just so you guys know, when the checks start going out, when those big fat checks go out to everyone across the country, this is where mine is going towards. This is what I'm doing at home. Writing bread puns.
You gotta stay focused, man. This is great. Like give me that list afterwards.
Again,
we'll find a way to put it into the game.
You're not using that word properly. I gotta find you a new word.
All right, Stefan. So how have you been? How's everything going? I mean, we met you at PAX. We had a great time. We loved the game. We obviously wanted to continue following it very closely. How have things been going since PAX, your reception at PAX until now? Even maybe disregarding the craziness that's going on around the world with this virus and everything like that. But like, how have things been going for the team, for you, and for the game in general since PAX?
Yeah, let me switch into that a little bit. It's tricky because there's so much obviously happening, for our studio and for our partners. But the one sort of great thing for the last few weeks was the feedback for the game, right? Like the kind of response we got after PAX has been really, really good. Like your guys' article and seeing all the punny kind of cheerful kind of cheeky way of talking about the game, really that spirit, we really hit it, I think, the way that we wanted to, right? Like to us, PAX was a really big test, right? It was the first time we really took it to an American audience. I mean, we've done some streamers and stuff before, but sort of taking our devs, right onto the floor and talking directly there with consumers, right? It's a totally different experience, right? And so for us, we were like, wow, this made us really happy. We love the way that everyone kind of picked up the game, from a gameplay perspective, the kind of weird, like living buns, somebody said like the Pokemon, but you eat them, so that gave a lot of laughs. And I was just in the audience sometimes watching the play, and you'd have like people walk by and they're like, #getpicked. Oh, I get that. That's funny. They keep walking, they don't come play, but they'd have a good laugh. and so everything, the energy just kind of was really nice for that. And, we got lucky because, we had queued up going to a couple other shows. There was GDC, we talked about E3, Bit Summit, all of that stuff in the next few months. And it all kind of got canceled on us, right? So this was
crumbled.
Yeah.
God, here we go.
The world was not ready for us,
Oh.
So we got the American show in Boston, and so we were super happy with this, right? That we got this one done, right? And it was actually just 2 weeks before I did a big tour in Japan, visiting the partners there. Just before that country also went into lockdown. So we've done our business pass, we've done our pass with players, and then everything got under shutdown. So I feel at least still pretty refreshed having done that, and sort of getting the word out, for early this year. And then I came back, and I've been in self quarantine for 2 weeks because our team is like, hey, you've been traveling the world, shaking too many hands. All these Americans over there, can't trust them.
Accurate.
Stay at home.
So for those who don't know what Bake and Switch is, tell everybody what it is.
Okay, so it's a couch co-op game where you have these little buns that are running around on a court, and they're very cute and adorable, and they're made out of dough. And you can grab them and you pop them on top of other buns, and you make them bigger and bigger, kind of accumulate the biggest possible bun you can. You grab that bun and just toss it into the oven, and then you eat it. Well, actually, you're sacrificing it to the guardians of dough, which are your frenemies, which apparently have the munchies on this island, and they're supposed to help you fight, this plague of sort of moldy creatures that have been coming onto your shores. And you have this game essentially that comes out of that, which is just a bit sort of cheeky humor mixed with combat, mixed with sort of team coordination, a little bit of sports play in there, because you kind of pass kind of things to each other, and then you have to make decisions, when do you score, risk versus reward, do you hold on to that big bun, or do you, score the smaller ones, so there's a kind of a sort of a rubber banding pull that allows the players to decide a lot how to play the game. And yeah, we hope that this kind of mix is really going to be something novel, and that people really going to enjoy from all kinds of ages to hop into this game. Yes.
One of the most fascinating things about the experience of playing the game is when you first approach it, the obvious comparisons come to mind. You're going to say, oh, it's like Overcooked, right? It's a cooking, whatever, you're kind of figuring things out. But as soon as you start playing it, you realize it's way, it's so not Overcooked. Like Overcooked is about remembering recipes and doing these little tasks and building everything the proper way. This is more like it's got a lot more physicality to it. It's about you're kind of treating there's enemies that you have to beat up so that they don't sour your dough. and sorry, that got me. So you beat them up, and you're kind of working to everybody could kind of do the same thing, or you could kind of just, like you said, when you were watching us play, we all kind of defaulted into these roles, like automatically. We just roles again.
That's
Holy shit!
Did it
right
again.
there. You're on a roll.
Oh man. I was off in the corner just combining the shit out of things and throwing like 30 stacks across to Andy, who's chucking them into the thing, and like one person was only punching the spoilers, and like all of that stuff. And that to me was what was most fascinating about it, is because I was expecting something completely different, and when I got in there, I'll be completely honest with you, I was intimidated because I'm not very good at Overcooked. Overcooked intimidates me because it's very, very difficult. It's not an easy game to play, but this was an easy game to play, but it seems like it's going to have a lot of layers to it. It's going to be, you're going to be able to pull apart a lot of it.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think we chose a game where you have 4 players cooperating in some kind of court, right? So that comparison does come up a lot, right? Oh, and it's a cooking theme, but we all like to eat, and we just wanted to be a bit ridiculous, and we're like, okay, let's go with this theme. So we accept that, right? Overcooked is of course a big title in that space. But then, we kind of came to the game where it is now really through a lot of exploration and trying out just really kind of random things. Like we realized, well, how do I say this? Like we didn't even try to pitch this to a publisher. We didn't even bother. Like, how the hell do you put this into a PowerPoint that makes any sense, right? There's going to be the stove creatures, they're alive, the oven that has attitude, and either they're going to be like, this sounds too much like a game that really exists, or I don't get it and it's just completely crazy. Because a lot of the dynamics is like you say, you don't really, this is a bit of a challenge for us, you don't really get a good sense for the game from a trailer, right? If you look at a trailer, the game is like, this is just frenzy and doesn't make any sense. But as you play it, you kind of discover these layers as you as you go through the game yourself, right? You're like, oh, okay, I get it. So there's like these things spawning over here, and I can kind of do some crowd control in the corner, or I can have my buddy, or I can kind of, sort of do more with the violent aspects or more with the sort of passing aspects. And you kind of get into it from there. And this is, where we realize that this is a game that you have to have players play, so we're not going to make this glorious, super trailer that is going to completely, oh my God, now people get it, right? And there's like 4 hours of cutscenes. That's not our game. This is really a game that needs to be in the hands of just anyone that wants to get into it. And then, maybe that's just how it is. Some games are better like this versus others. Some games are great with trailers. Some games are best with just hands-on, go at it. And so, here we are. So I don't know. What was your question? Did you ask a question? I don't know.
It was more just a comment, and I just wanted to know like how you felt about it. And before I kick it over to Andy, obviously the cancellation of a lot of these events after PAX is devastating for a game that you do have to play to really fall in love with it. It's not something you could just look at videos. What is your plan as a studio going forward to continue the momentum you had at PAX in spite of what's going on around the world?
Well, a lot of it is going to be digital, right? So we don't have some of the shows as we had intended, but at the same time, what matters is you make a good game and you release a good game, right? And so the main thing was for us to keep the developers uninterrupted moving forward, and that is pretty much accomplished. So they're, still charging ahead for the summer release. And so it's, about dev kits, testing. We have refactored some of the stuff behind the scenes. So it's just about getting all of that stuff working and pushing it out. So that runs in parallel. I'm not distracting the developers. And, we're working with getting some early builds out. We're talking to just you guys and players directly and letting them just experience the game. We're doing a new thing called Bun Ambassadors, and so just exposing the bread as it rises in the next few months, because it's almost there, right? And we haven't, like, the game that actually the build that you guys have is actually pretty old. It's actually from it's from late last year. It's like November, December, something like this, because we've done a lot of kind of refactoring a lot of the code. Like, I don't know if you know this, but the Unreal Engine, you can do a lot of sort of visual code, like sort of like just kind of connecting wires visually almost. But it's not an efficient way to build the game from a performance perspective. Right? And we did announce Switch and stuff like this. So a lot of that has been sort of like, taken apart and rebuilt in C++, sort of highly efficient code language. And then sort of, the game looks the same now, but it actually, all the logic underneath it has been sort of rewritten since then. But this is one of the things we've been doing, and you get a lot of benefits for, the different console releases and all that stuff. So to us, honestly, that's what matters, is just we charging ahead, building the game and getting it ready for launch, because word out will come also just by having a good game at one point that people can just enjoy, especially in this time, right? A game that is makes you laugh, that you can enjoy with your family, that you can just really get into. There you go. Just have fun. I think that's what we need this year. So let me say it this way: I'm very happy we're not making some kind of depressing, story-heavy, just kind of like moody, like the world is ending kind of hardcore game, right? I like that we make a game that makes you laugh and you can have that humor about it. Well, I think that's what we need.
If we take a really like dark turn, does it look a little breadline DLC for this game?
Oh god!
Like the players standing waiting to eat cooked dough creatures.
There's a global shortage of food or something.
And also, I'm really glad he mentioned that I have an old build. That just means I'm going to harass you for the fresh build when this is over.
The fresh build.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure the build you're going to have is really good, because I don't want to give you something half baked, right?
Oh no! Okay, you know what? I'm setting a timer. At least 5 minutes. I want to wait before the next pun.
You have to let this rest.
Yeah, stop it.
Actually, our demo was called the half-baked edition, I think, the one we had at PAX.
So, I mean, just to go back to what you were saying before, Stephen, that like it's easy to make that Overcooked comparison, but it's very surface level. It's like saying that Cooking Mama is, what Overcooked is. It's not. It's two different kinds of games entirely. Where when I play Overcooked, my usual role is like yelling out ingredients, like, okay, I need onions, I need tomato, I need lettuce. But when I play this, I'm yelling at people to stop being stupid and to just make bigger balls of dough. So I was playing with my fiance on the earlier build. I was saying, like, listen, just throw the shit into other shit to make bigger shit, and I'll punch the bad shit, and then we'll win. So we were playing for a while, and then we kind of went through what I didn't see a lot of at the PAX East. That was the idea of flavors and how you can enhance each of the dough creatures, and how the orders can get more evolved. So kind of go into that part, and what else can we expect from the gameplay as we progress further in Bacon Switch.
So one thing that you noticed, I think you called it like the physicality of the game, right? Like this came out of our kind of obsession with keeping the user interface really clean, right? Like you don't have a lot of indicators, you don't have like a lot of like stats, like, you know, this is the next order, or this is the current, you know, request. So this is kind of like what the oven wants. A good example of that is, you know, like actually like in a very early version, like the oven was not sentient, but they kind of emerged out of the idea of like, well, how do we communicate kind of the intent, you know, the request, right? So it's like, well, make it have attitude, right? So like you toss in the wrong thing, and you know, it could have been very easy to just have like an X shows up on screen, like, nah, you know, bad request or whatever, you know, didn't work out. But instead we just said it's angry, right? So we can animate the object in the scene itself, right? So that has informed actually a lot of the design, that we said just put it in there directly, like have, well, and again, the benefit is if your bread is alive, it can have attitude, right? It can be happy, unhappy, grumpy, and you can use that to drive really like what the gameplay is supposed to be about. You see what I mean? So that is very helpful for that, right? And we're pretty obsessed with keeping the gameplay clean like this. So you have a question, or?
Oh, you're just gonna get into like, because at a certain point you can start like adding like strawberry jam and coconut flavors to each of the doughs to fulfill different requests. How much deeper does that go as you progress in the game? Like, what else can we expect from the gameplay?
So
without revealing too much.
Yeah, I have to parse it a little bit, because here's the thing, you know, like your build has only the first world, right? There's going to be other worlds, you know. I think we mentioned that, you know, like in the other ones you have also food themed buns, but different creatures, you know, with different behaviors. So a couple of things happen. So one, for example, is that all the buns, let's call them the doughs, I guess. When they go bigger by themselves, they actually have some kind of unique behavioral ability. You may have seen this when you play it. Like when the normal bun gets big, it gets hungry and eats actually other buns. It becomes like carnivorous. It grows itself for you. It's sort of beneficial ability, right? So it looks kind of scary, but it actually is useful, because you can kind of pop it, put a big one into a corner amongst little ones. It'll actually self-grow, right? Like that's sort of the benefit. They have behavior that is actually beneficial to you. For example, then you have the dodo bird, which also when it gets big, you know, it at one point it can actually also be useful. That the way you trigger that behavior is you beat it a little bit, you just give it a slap, you know, and then it actually flies itself to the oven type of thing, right? So they have certain behaviors that can be beneficial for you, and the other buns, the other ones we haven't seen yet, have something similar as well, right? Like you can use it for kind of controlling the battlefield, do a little bit of things, you know, almost like, you know, strategy game, like your unit, do that, right? There's the flip side though, which is when they become moldy, right? I think you've seen this in the game now, that actually the buns themselves can't just get stuck; they can actually become moldy.
Like
then
the zombie kind of status, they can
exactly the zombie buns, right? Then they have a flip side; they will have some kind of negative behavior, right? That will then, you know, either cause trouble in other parts of court, or, you know, like maybe as an example, right? I think the moldy big bun, you know, the round one, will kamikaze into the oven, which then of course the oven will be upset and will kind of, the spores come out of it, won't be happy, right? So you have to kind of balance it like this. So that's kind of like, you know, what you see is more bun behaviors, you know, kind of managing the court from that perspective. There's the flavoring aspects, of course, which in the other environments you'll have different kind of mechanics triggering that. Like, for example, you know, you may have like a cinnamon storm or something that flavors your thing just by the wind blowing over it, and then that will be connected to obviously the level layouts, for example, right? So you're going to see more of that, where it's not necessarily a flavoring pool, although pools will be a big thing because it works really, really well. So you have that, but also more kind of like using then this is another level to it, I guess, just the court layouts themselves, you know, kind of limiting, you know, how do I get over there with this kind of contraption in place, and I have to flavor it like this, or this door opens and the wind blows through, or, you know, I toss it into that pool, pick it back up, right? You have to kind of figure that out. But the one thing that stays quite consistent is this kind of physicality to it, right? It's kind of like there's a physical thing in the environment somehow that flavors it or modifies it or does something like this, and then you need to kind of read the code and then sort of engage with it from there. Right? But it's going to get more complicated for sure.
Yeah, that's very inspiring, because I think the lesson learned here is that if you want someone to listen, you just slap around a little bit, and then then you'll be fine.
Physicality is the word of the show.
Yeah, physicality. Yeah. Like we're talking about like kids, let's not push it too far. Maybe you have dads working on the games like just slap the dodo and then it'll like no
it'll go into the oven all by itself.
Well, art does imitate life, so that's
wow. No, it's like they don't feel pain, so it's okay, and they want to be in the oven in the end, right? So they want to do their part. So
I'm glad you cleared that up, because it does feel a little weird that these happy little creatures, you're just throwing them into this oven, but they want to be that's their destiny. Like, that's what that's their job.
Right? Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, I mean, if you were a piece of bread, you want to be eaten. That's kind of like your thing, right? So
sure.
It's their part in the ecosystem, right? So
I mean, should we get into the mythos of the sentient bread? Like,
yeah, let's go into the lore a little bit.
So does this bread? So they're sentient. They obviously they know that they need to be consumed. Is it finite? Is once a dough creature is eaten, is it gone forever, or does its soul go into another piece of dough somewhere?
See, this is where the developer has to say something like, "This is all spoiler territory and mystery," which is another way of saying it. Like, we totally have it figured out, right?
Well, what I wonder is, do they even know, because they have these big dumb smiles on their faces?
Well, there's a bunch of backstory to this, and one thing is it's connecting to the fact that there are actually a lot of different worlds that all have like their own little ecosystem that is coming out of these edible creatures, right? And so we're kind of seeing how far we can push that, because you have a lot of species that all have their different kind of like, it's like they evolved in different environments, right? Like if you had, for example, like a more temperate climate, like European forest, like you'd have different kind of creatures in that, and vice versa, right? So there's this whole like what is with this edible universe kind of thing to it, right? As for the guardians, they are then these kind of like powerful, almost like magical creatures that live in that. They're not edible, they're not that. So you said you do have them two things, but you do have some kind of animals, you do have these living bread creatures, right? So there's a lot there to discover, and in some sense, the bakers, I don't think they know all of that either. They just know that there have been like thousands of years of kind of engaging with, these mystical creatures that are alive, right? And so you'll find, like, I mean, even in the first level, there's like these ruins and stuff, right? Like, who built that? Was it the first bakers, So there's more questions than answers to some of these things. And, that's somewhat intentional, because we're gonna sort of plot that out over like really several worlds that you're going to explore and then find out more about it.
How does one know if they're destined to be a baker? Do they cut your umbilical cord with like a spatula, or like, if you were me growing up, like, did your mom with the wooden spoon beat you a couple times, and that's the test you got to go through to become a baker, or with a rolling pin?
It's like being a baker is like a very special kind of place in society, right? Because you have the ability to have actually this, well, in terms of gameplay, there's actually even unique abilities that each of the bakers has, right? So they have like a special connection. It's kind of like, like Chris Pratt in a Jurassic World, right? Where he like controls, he engages with the raptors.
Okay.
Situation, so there's something special about the bakers, and they all have some kind of unique ability, and this kind of leans into really also the game, like you guys mentioned earlier, like taking certain roles, right? So some bakers are better at maybe, engaging with the flavoring, others more with the behavior, others more like with combat, that's good at fighting, right? But, in our world, it's really sort of a mix between like, being a wrangler, being a cook, and a team player and a sports player, right? So these are people that, from early age, I guess, are trained in their society and then get a chance to come to these islands.
A dough whisperer.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's the old lady for sure. It's got to be. There's no way around it.
No, they got to get a chef named Caesar. He'll be the dough whisperer.
We're gonna get more crazy. I think that there's a few more characters coming already. 2 more are already.
Oh, don't worry, we'll get to that. Right, Andy?
Sure.
Oh yeah, we have our own little PowerPoint to present to you at some point.
We have a presentation for you a little bit later. A little bit later in the show.
So what's the trajectory here? So we have your most fresh version of the demo you guys are working on now, what you've been playing with. What's the release window looking like for Bacon Switch?
Still summer. Summer. It won't be early summer. It'll be like, yeah, you can still call it summer, over here somewhere, and we'll blame it on, whatever the virus or something, like, oh, no,
See, that's a weird thing because I don't want to stray too much, but like we had a guest that was going to come on the show last week. They postponed because of all the Corona chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking this is, I think, one of the best times to be a gamer because you're indoors and you release a game. It just seems like an opportune moment to kind of strike while the iron's hot, so to speak.
That's the theory, right? So I mean, it's true. That's why I want to get the game out, in summer, before winter, because in winter, you still have the big new consoles coming, and maybe attention will shift into that, So that's why we want to maintain our momentum as it is, and like I don't want to release next February or something, right? Like that would be, I think. I think we're ready. I think, the dough is rising and it's all in time and we'll make that happen, right? You just have to stay focused on it amongst this crazy time, that's why the team is just kind of like, I'm not, I promise them more or less, like, I'm not going to ask them for like another demo build, another version that includes more stuff. Because every time we do another build, it's a lot of testing. It's a lot of kind of balancing that specific one, right? And it takes a lot of work to do that. And so at this point, we're like, we're focusing on the game, right? And get that thing done.
So as the team is getting ready to amp up for the eventual release in summer, have they been eyeing the next gen systems, like sort of leaning in, saying, "Hey, like what's happening over here?" Like, are they having discussions about what the next game would look like? Would it involve next gen technology, or is it just a clear focus on let's get this out the door first or out of the oven? God damn it! And then worry about.
Right?
Yeah, it's been more than 5 minutes. I checked, and then we'll worry about next gen, somewhere down the line.
Well, I think our team is mostly just concerned about making a good game first, right? And it doesn't really matter what console it runs on, especially this kind of game. You're not competing with, having the most epic storyline or the most incredible, HD graphics or something. So it's just make something that is fun and engaging. And I think this is why, that philosophy I think really worked well with Nintendo. And obviously we partnered with them on the the indies program and that kind of stuff, So I think for now, obviously we're looking at all the tech, and I mean our studio works on a lot of next gen games and that stuff already, right? So it's kind of weird, like you've got like a bun over here kind of developer, and then you've got like some unreleased PS5 title, down the corridor being worked on, but for our own title, it's very much just make it a fun, engaging game, and players have to get into it. So we'll take it sort of step by step, wherever it makes sense. Wherever there's an audience, I think, that can enjoy this and have a good laugh and throw bad puns at each other, that's what matters.
Wait, so the buns aren't in 8K and 120 FPS?
You
saying
son of a bitch.
I can neither confirm nor deny, our plans on these things.
How many flops? How many teraflops are in each bun?
So outside of the game, like, does next gen excite you? Like, or you just kind of like? I guess now that we know more about what they are, I don't know if you watched the PlayStation spec reveal from earlier. Or I guess it would be yesterday for you, last night. Has it been an exciting thing to kind of count down towards, or does this sort of thing not really matter to you until a couple of years into the dev cycle or the life cycle?
I mean, from a developer perspective, next gen is already here for us, right? Like there are already projects that we're supporting internally, and we're looking at that are next gen, right? That are these kind of like really intense, it makes your PC cry type of games today, right? But of course, when you look at it, and you're like, well, it's running at 5 FPS today, but you know that in a year or two, this is going to be really awesome, like super incredible, fun game, to play on a next-gen console. So these things are coming, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it, and at one point it'll just be normal, But I think what's interesting is that nowadays you're going to have, I think, even let's say in by early 2021, for example, let's say the new consoles come out. You're still going to have the Nintendo Switch. You're still going to have, I think, Steam doing its thing, and you're going to have different audiences at different places. And I think that's really, really exciting, that you're going to have really advanced, next-gen consoles doing their thing with really cool new releases. But you're going to have Animal Crossing, and you're going to have, kind of more chill games, playing on Switch, and you can then have the Switch Lite coming, which is really cool. But you have all of these things, and of course, Steam is still doing its own thing with its own kind of audience as well. And I like how we're having these different things going on, right? So I think that from our perspective is really the most interesting part. It's not so much about like, next gen tech is just everything, but rather like different players with different kind of games, have a different kind of place. And that level of focus is actually really nice, right? Like, for example, internally, we do more prototypes, games that are coming out, hopefully after Bacon Switch. And, one of them, it's a bit more like, this is a PC title, slow burn, it's more like a strategy type thing. That's for PC first. Bacon Switch is very casual, that makes more sense for, Nintendo Switch, that kind of stuff, console game. Other things are much more like, okay, this is definitely a hardcore PS5 title or something like this, right? So it's something where like you look for where the audience is going to be, and then where should your game sort of live within, sort of the landscape, if that makes sense.
Sure. Even hypothetically, you choose PS5 over Xbox. Got it. Understood.
Well, I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff on PlayStation. It's true, I probably say PlayStation much more than Xbox. It's true. It's because also like based where we are with our developers here, PlayStation is much more prevalent here right now in Asia. And we do a lot of work with Japan. So, we go there, like, I don't think they even know what an Xbox looks like sometimes over there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
In Japan. But,
No, that's a VCR. That's what a VCR is.
That's a TiVo, sir.
But, to be fair, I mean, we do get requests even for Bacon Switch also take it to Xbox. So, obviously, we have to plan for all of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. What other, like, so how long have you been in this industry? Like, how many different developer teams are you in contact with? Like, what exactly do you do?
What do I do? Yeah,
it's a little late to ask that question.
Well, the reason why I'm asking,
what do you do? Sir?
Hold on, let me defend myself here. The reason why I'm asking is because we got you on here based on Bacon Switch. I don't really know you outside of that.
The man,
but it sounds like you know. And
give us some of your lore.
We're going to get into the minutia of who you are very soon. Trust me on that. But as far as the gaming industry goes, where did you get your start? What do you kind of do outside of Bacon Switch?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm distracted by a cat in the background. It's awesome. So what was the question? Let's skip this question. No, okay. I'll answer it. Like, who are you, right?
Yeah, outside of Bacon Switch, just in the gaming industry, where'd you get your start, and like how'd that happen?
Okay, you want the short or the long version? Let me see here. I give you the medium. Well, it's been over 20 years actually, working in games. So I got my start making levels and doing simple programming in the 90s, right? So was just this German kid, living at home, of course, while being in school, and I got into the modding scene. So making levels for like Duke Nukem 3D, Quake, there was a lot of that. And then there was a little game that started to show up on the horizon called Half-Life. While Half-Life was kind of like being developed, we were making our first mod in the Quake engine at the time. And this guy, just who's this guy? There's some Microsoft guy, contacted us, I guess. He's like, hey, my name is Gabe Newell. And he's like, why did you guys port this game to our new up and coming, title called Half-Life? And we're like, we're too cool for school, we're modders, like we're, but in the end, like, we're like, yeah, what, actually, this sounds really cool. Like once we saw what they were doing, we actually got an early access SDK into the game, and got really much more close with Valve, with our game called Gunman, which was, our first game just think of it this way: you got cowboys and aliens and dinosaurs in space, and that's a very 90s kind of game, right?
Yes.
So
I'm in.
that's how it started.
My kind of game.
And then of course, Half-Life came out, and we're like, we knew it all along. This was the best thing ever. We were super happy that we chose the right engine. But what was great essentially is that for me, I was just this kid that we came into this kind of modding scene for Gunman. We had a chance to really get kind of guided by Valve for the launch of the game. They more or less gave us a boot camp for finishing the game. So I came over to the US, up to Seattle, and apparently the 1 year where it wasn't raining all the time, which was 2000, right? We learned from them while they were making Half-Life 2 on how to really finish a game, right? And I got introduced to things called like Snapple and Starbucks and Wendy's, which I didn't know all of these things.
And diabetes.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I gained a lot of weight, and crunch mode, finishing mode, all of that, and then we got into it, finishing a game, and I did amazing things like I made one of their testers throw up playing our game because he got motion sick, so that was great. That was
awesome.
Our first week at Valve. Actually the writer, Mark Laidlaw, he played our game and threw up. I don't know if that's a judgment of the game. He wasn't impressed. Things like this. And there was a booking problem with one of our hotels, so we had to stay overnight in the office. So I slept in a cardboard box at Valve. Finishing the game. So that was our crash course in starting. Working there, finishing the game, and the game came out. It actually was a decent success, enough at least for us to get a bit of money on the side, right? So then we said, actually this, making games is really fun, but we wanted to try to stay as independent as we could be. So we also wanted to give services to other people, to fund ourselves independently, so we don't have to go to a publisher immediately. Especially like in the early 2000s, like that was a really harsh world, like going out there and getting a publisher in some kind of favorable deal that isn't going to kill you afterwards was really, really tricky, right?
Yeah.
So we did essentially a service studio approach while doing our own prototypes on the side, working on games, and that's how it started, right? That's how Streamline was started, and I've been with that studio ever since I started it, so 20 years ago.
What games has Streamline had their hands in over the course of the 20 years?
Oh my God. Well, we did a lot of work with Epic Games even early on, Unreal Tournament, Gears of War, so a lot of work with those guys on that. We helped to ship Final Fantasy 15.
Thank you, for God's sakes, thank you so much for finally finishing that game.
Oh. A lot of work with those guys, Square Enix in Tokyo. That was
half your career, right? Shipping that game?
Yeah, just about.
I worked a couple of years with them in sort of long-term partnership. But yeah, it was intense, right? We tend to attract really intense projects, I think. People are like, oh shit, better call these guys and help get the game out,
How do you help them directly? Like, what is it that you bring to the table that helps a Square Enix finish a Final Fantasy game? Like, what do you got? What are you bringing?
Well, it's essentially we have different kind of teams, so it depends on where you are in the cycle. But the one thing that I think we have at Streamline is that our team is kind of sort of like this really highly integrated group of specialists that all can help each other. So you're going to have like the art and animation team, you have the programming team, you have a whole bunch of designers. And essentially, like if somebody comes to us with a complex problem, let's say, I have to finish this open world massive game in a year, and when a game a year before it comes out, it's in a pretty rough state. Performance is usually bad. Gameplay isn't quite it. It's not as fun as it's supposed to be. And problems tend to be really entangled, right? It's not, you can't just point at like one issue and can say, oh, it's the gameplay's fault, or it's just the bad programming or memory issues or whatever. It's usually a mix, right? It's kind of like a mix of, the animation has some problems, which then causes, gameplay problems, and then gameplay, programming code causes memory issues, and it's all entangled, right? So coming to us, we can try to have a sort of holistic solution. We can be like, okay, we're going to have a bunch of art optimized over here, while at the same time our QA team kind of triages the performance issues, and they'll directly work with the programmers. The programmers work on the performance, and at the same time they're going to pass on the gameplay features, which are not as fun as they're supposed to be, right? So you kind of like you go through this ring, like of different teams that all touch each other in some sense, and I think this is a benefit you have with Streamline. Like, we're not just programmers or just artists or just this or that. We are fully built developer, right? That can help others, but of course we can also do our own games at the same time, like Bacon Switch, right? So the benefit, of course, that you have when you come to us as a developer is that you're going to be exposed to, honestly, like a lot of the mistakes and problems every other developer goes through, and we can see that, we can help them, and then of course we can apply their lessons for our own development internally as well, right? So this is like, we have a bunch of programmers that just have like ADD in some sense. Like, they get so used to seeing everyone else, all the other games every 6 months to go into another project, that becomes almost like addicting to them, right? But of course that knowledge is really valuable, because when you then think about your own products, it really helps you to avoid some of those mistakes. Be like, hey guys, remember that 2 years ago, like we saw this wall we ran into together with our other partner. Let's just not try to do that here for Bacon Switch, right? So yeah, that's how we help studios, over the years, and the complexity of our service has been growing, and at this point it's sort of like full-on long-term partnerships. Like people like Capcom in Osaka, have been working with them consecutively for years. Did a lot of work for Street Fighter V and that kind of stuff, and I think that's the future of development. It's going to be kind of more like how movies are produced, where you have several really sort of like complex advanced studios collaborating with each other over many years to come.
Is that kind of like the visual effects artist that was brought in to remove CG buttholes from the cats models?
Is that a thing?
Yes. Like,
I want that job.
6 weeks before the movie was released, this guy was apparently hired, or the studio was hired, to come in and remove CGI butts.
Wow.
From the cats. I don't know. I've heard this. I don't know if it's 100% true.
It's like a reverse DeviantArt.
I know.
Wow. No, I didn't know that. That's I'm scarred now hearing that. But no, I think it's similar to visual effects. What we do in terms of like artists that are working in movies can also work in games if they learn our technology. But
right.
I think the one benefit you have in visual effects, and I don't want to step on any toes here, but it is a bit easier to get to, like, here's the single frame of the finished result and it works and you don't touch it anymore, and it's it'll be in show it in movie theaters and it's fine. Games tend to be a lot more entangled, right? Like, you change one thing in the software and you potentially break 10 things down the road in some other part, and you have to retest everything, right? So
right.
For us, it's not so much like we can come in just for 6 weeks. It tends to be more longer term, because every step triggers all these consequences. You have to double check, re-QA everything, and suddenly performance dips in some other level because of some feature you added in the first level. So it tends to be more technically involved, so it's similar, but it's a little different in the approach compared to the film scene.
Can you ask Gabe where Half-Life 3 is? Or are you working on it? I think.
No,
I think you are.
Oh, Half-Life 3 confirmed.
I don't know about that.
Now, PS5 a couple times, and Steam's doing their thing. I don't know.
We do
their thing.
Since you are, so adept at answering or solving complex problems, we do have a complex problem for you.
Uh-oh.
How does one podcast create a Siamese twin-like chef character of the both of them in Bacon Switch? Answer question starting now.
How does a podcast become a game developer?
No. How does how do two podcast hosts become one character in Bacon Switch? How does that happen? How do we make that work? It's a complex problem. A lot of paper.
Well, you guys clearly are the experts on that. I'm just.
Well, I think you have the right ingredients to make this happen.
Okay.
Sugar, spice, everything nice. You know how it is.
Lots of bad puns. That's important.
Terrible puns. Terrible puns. Awful skin complexion, too. We have pretty awful skin complexion. A lot of beards, though. We had a couple of those.
Yeah, beardy bread.
I just think like a developer. So if you mention, two people combining, like, it's like, how do you control the input in the game? Do you get half a controller each? How do you
if it breaks the game, we're all for it.
Our ability is that we can't agree on anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just like you stand still in the game, like, don't do anything. That is easy. We can easily put a broken thing into the game.
We each get only 30 seconds of control at a time.
That would actually be kind of funny, like switching controls like that. From one controller to the like you crisscross it.
You could have that one for free. All right.
I appreciate the ideas.
Something has gone awry.
Let's get into our rapid fire questions, Andy.
Oh boy.
Andy, start us off with our customary first question.
This is actually a very fitting question because if anyone knows about dough and things dealing with dough, especially pizza, you'd be our guest. So the first question is, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Oh God. Well, as a kid, I used to eat it because in Germany we do all kinds of weird food stuff. I mean, you can put ketchup on anything, for example. So I would say neutral on that.
Okay.
But yes, as a kid, yes.
Let the record stand. He said weird food stuff.
He did say weird food stuff. I will give you that, Andy.
I have like a couple of, like I have one Italian working for us, and if I tell him that today I would do this, he would probably like slap me. So I have to say no to that. But as a kid in Germany, I got away with it. So
what is the weirdest thing you have ever dunked in a glass of milk?
In a glass of milk?
Yeah. You dunk a cookie, a donut. Is there anything weird that you've ever dunked in a glass of milk?
This may be more weird food stuff for him.
More weird food stuff. I'm trying to think in a glass of milk. I mean, milk goes with so many things. I mean, milk is awesome, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think like, did I ever do something weird with milk?
Are you not a dunker?
Drunk, but no, not a dunker. Like at least maybe I don't remember doing it. Because when you drink a lot, you do weird stuff, but you usually don't have milk around when you do that. Like that's like later even like who's like going to a party and it's like hey, I want a glass of milk. It's like so I don't remember. No, I don't know if I ever.
You got any 2% in here? All right, Andy.
Actually, that reminds me of a film. What was it? Alienation, where they got drunk on spoiled milk. Remember that movie? That was a weird movie. When was the last time you touched a monkey?
Interesting question.
When is the last time I touched a monkey? Well, you're not supposed to touch monkeys because they have like all kinds of disease and stuff, right? So my wife.
I just saw Outbreak on Netflix, by the way, for the 10th time.
Here in Malaysia, we do have actually a lot of monkeys. Like there's temples, you can feed monkeys. Well, you're actually not supposed to feed monkeys, but they'll come and chase you and stuff. So probably the last time I touched a monkey, or a monkey touched me rather, probably was somewhere there, like chasing you down. He's like, "Hey, you got food?" Like poking you and grabbing your leg and stuff like that. So that would be my guess, But my wife is a biologist, and she's like, "No, don't touch them. It's a bad idea." Like they do all kinds of stuff. If you touch them, you can't touch our kid afterwards, So you don't do that. She works with elephants mostly.
Ooh.
In terms of monkeys, I think that's that. I think probably like a year ago, something here in the city somewhere. Well, not in the city, but one of the temples.
If you can have one wild animal as a pet, disease-free, they're not going to eat you. They're just a docile house pet, housebroken, 100%. What animal would it be?
Completely impossible. You have to remember, my wife is a wildlife biologist, and she gets upset just seeing videos of domesticated wild animals. She's like, "That's not cool. They're an endangered species. They need to be rewilded into the natural habitats. They will never be comfortable at home. So I cannot. This would never fly here. That I have a wild animal." That is not supposed to be here at home. So that's not the case. But the one thing that, I do get to do is, we did do a couple of tours where we visit some of the animals at Baier studies, which are elephants, right? Wild elephants here in the country. And you can do sightings where you can drive into locations where you have a chance of seeing them hang out. And, you have to keep a distance to them. You can't touch them or something. But, I do get to see that part of the wildlife adventure. And honestly, that's probably the best way to do this because, if she's right, like if you have a wild animal, like that's not made to be domesticated, they will never be happy. You just can't keep them at home. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure.
There's no right or wrong answer here.
Yeah.
Andy?
So,
would you rather have the power of flight or invisibility?
Oh, flying would be fun. I mean, don't you remember as a kid, having all those dreams where you fly around? At least I had those. That's super cool. Otherwise, you're just a stalker. You fly around, that's much better than being a creep. So,
Why is it a creep?
Correct.
Being invisible. I mean,
Stefan, don't encourage him.
understand
He
all of
knows
you.
why it's a creep. He knows
It's
why.
not creepy at all.
He knows why.
I would use my power for good.
There is no good that comes of you being invisible.
you see that
Period.
movie, right? And like, what's it, Hollow Man or whatever, Invisible Man? It's like all the movies, like where somebody becomes invisible, they
Kevin
become the bad
Bacon,
guy.
and he's
Yeah,
all
exactly.
good.
Kevin Bacon gets all weird, It's like, so it's just not gonna work, right? Like you're gonna be, you're gonna become like the antagonist.
One day I hope I can have this power just to lift the stigma that surrounds this ability. It's gotten a bad rap over the years.
Give us
between Hollywood.
one instance where you do being invisible. Give us the one thing
Not
you would
me.
do that's good.
There is an entire hero based around this ability. Invisible Woman. Is she a villain?
Her powers aren't just invisibility.
I
she
rest
also
my case.
makes force fields. You
But
suck.
But is she a creeper when she uses it in the comic?
Yes.
She's not called Force Field Lady. She's Invisible Woman.
Is this the one with the invisible jet? I mean,
that's Wonder Woman, and that just is stupid. Invisible jet. What's the point of that?
It's like we have stealth bombers already. Like that's not really that hard.
There's also a person flying around in the seated position.
Good.
That's true. That's so
good.
We already have Superman. What's the point? All right. Let's calm down, Andy. Okay? Calm down.
I am calm. I feel like I'm personally attacked.
Did you have Stefan, did you have an imaginary friend as a kid?
Yeah, I think I did, for a couple of days, and then I told my grandma about it. She's like, no, that doesn't exist. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's
Wow.
stopped. Yeah.
You just totally
went
killed
away.
your childhood.
She's like, Germans don't do that. So,
9!
Germans don't dream.
like, it's like,
Stop that
exactly.
imagination.
It's like, 9, we don't do this, so.
And
She
then,
didn't say it like that,
then you
but,
went on to
like,
create little dough creatures in the video game. That's how
Yeah,
you make up for that.
I've always been, I guess, I mean, to get into games, you have to kind of be a bit weird, so of course, it was like drawing, board games as a kid, and I mean, the one thing that, my grandma took away my imaginary friend, but she did give me a Commodore 64 at age 6, right? So I didn't appreciate that.
My grandmother took away my imaginary friend.
Can that please be the quote for this episode?
It's the saddest thing I've ever heard. That should be on someone's tombstone somewhere after a suicide.
It was sad, but the trade was nice. I got my computer. She made me a game developer. I gave her credit for that. Right? She gave me that, like it's I don't know if you've ever seen one Commodore 64. They call like a bread basket because it kind of looked like that. But that's how it started, right? Like, and so I got it. I played games on it to begin with, but then the floppy disk drive broke. So I had to kind of look at all the books and programming books that came with it, and then that's how I started programming in BASIC. My first game as a 7-year-old, I guess.
Wow.
So she kind of got me into that. Yeah, it wasn't a very good game. It was more just like, how old are you? And then like if it's like a certain number, then I would tell you you're awesome or you're stupid. So it wasn't particularly incredible. So.
It's on par with some of these adventure games, I will say. What you got, Andy?
Would you rather constantly be naked or always have people watch you have sex?
Ew.
But both you're naked. So what's the difference? Like one is like more awkward than the other.
Right. So which one would you pick? You gotta pick one.
Well, I never wanted to have a career in porn. That wasn't going to be a thing. So, I've been, yeah, sure, why not naked? I mean, Germans have these nudist beaches or whatever anyway, so I guess you get used to it. So there you go. But that's better than, I mean, just, some privacy, like with your wife would be nice. That's a weird question, man. Like, this is like
he's
like
weird.
Way out there.
Hey,
way out.
Listen, I'm a creeper, right? So I gotta ask the creeper question.
Exactly. Like no, exactly. Like want to be invisible with that. I can see how this all connects there.
Can you
see,
build?
This is the one.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just thinking. I mean, of course, the one benefit if you are, I can see how it connects now. If you are invisible, being naked, of course, is super not a problem. Like I think that everyone would just walk around naked because you're invisible. Who cares? Right, so I can see how that can be useful.
I don't want any aphids flying in my pee hole. Thank you very much.
That's true. There's that.
Plus, I can't imagine you won't be cold, right?
Yeah, you'd be cold. You need a force field around you to keep you warm, so you need that ability then.
Can you build a fire?
Can I build a fire? What, like you mean like in the wilderness or something? Like
yeah. Can you make a campfire without, just we got sticks and Whatever's in your pocket
Yeah, yeah.
that's not a lighter, I guess.
I guess I could. I mean, at least in Europe, I could. You have like some dry wood and stuff like this, magnifying glass or something. Like I used to be like, as a kid, I was into like all this like spy stuff. Like we had like this secret club in school, spy club. And like we wrote like in secret languages and stuff like this. But then like one kid like threatened to beat me up because like he thought it's about him. Like you had that club to make fun of me or something. I'm like, no, it's not about that. We're just being nerds. But I could make fire as a kid. So now I don't think I can here because jungles in Malaysia are more humid. So I don't know how to do the dry wood stuff, but See, I used to be able to do stuff. Now I'm just useless. Like I can't even do anything anymore. I just sit and talk all day. This is what I do.
Andy,
what is one thing that you own that you wish you didn't?
There's one thing that I own that I wish you didn't. What do I own?
Crippling anxiety.
Yeah, probably. Well, we have a cheap car, so that's not it. I mean, yeah. What do I own? I think it's okay. I don't think I own. I mean, I have a lot of books, which is both good and bad, right? Like it's good because we like to read. I mean, it's a very nerdy family we have here. You can imagine, my wife is a professor academic, so she reads a lot. We do this thing, nerding out together, drinking coffees, reading. So we love that. It's just that they do stack up. No pun intended, extra pun intended. And it get heavy, right? And actually, that's what it is. I do love books. I love, that worn out sense of having a real book in your hand. It's much more like tangible like this, But of course, when you carry them around, you're like, oh my god, why didn't I do this on a Kindle? But I don't like the digital reading. I spend so much time looking at computer screens. I do like books.
There's nothing like having the paper in your hands. There's nothing like it.
Kill more trees, because that's what we need, right?
All right. I'm going to do I think it's time for our last question, Andy.
Oh no, our last one.
I think it's time.
Oh boy. Okay, you go for it.
And I think we're going to get an interesting answer here.
I think I know the answer already.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. Stefan, this is a question that we ask all of our guests. That's a very important question. It's probably the most important question. Probably of your life, if I'm being honest.
Oh, no, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Now, you said that you are good at solving complex problems. It's what you guys do at Streamline. It's what you do.
I said my team is good at solving complex problems. I don't know about me.
But you are the brains behind the operation.
Problems.
All right. Complex question. Andy or Steven?
Oh, shit. Oh, well, Okay, it was actually, pretty simple, like video gamers or developers, we're also visual people, right? Mm-hmm. So, one guy has got a video feed, there's a cute cat, there's a vacuum cleaner, there's a handsome beard, and I'm sorry, Andreas, but no picture, man. Like, what's up with that?
You want to see me? There's my beautiful face. So look how handsome I am. I got a beard.
Oh. I love the from below camera,
There you go, yeah.
That's very impressive.
Crotch cam.
That's a nice save, but it's been an hour of talking and now we see you, so it's like, I've been,
I do it for the bandwidth, for the quality of the show.
He's calling you a coward.
And yes, he is.
But, if you wrote the article, then, like you're the writer, you can be a bit introverted. It's okay.
Ooh,
He did.
Okay.
You did.
Yeah, I did write an article about your game, didn't I?
Man.
Yes, you did.
See, that makes it super tough then, because that was a hilarious article. We had a great time reading that. So this is really tough, because you've got the writing skills, but then, Stephen over here, firstly, your name is the same. So there's a brotherly bond there that I can see because of the name.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? And also your cat in the background, that's scored it for me. So
and I got another cat. And my other cat is down here eating. And he's a kitten, so he's extra cute.
Just say because I'm a creeper, that's why you won't pick me. Just say it. We're all thinking it.
Well, I mean, invisibility thing, the camera was off.
It's a deal breaker, man.
Listen, you better hope I don't ever get that ability because I will hop on the plane.
So yeah,
I will move all the books in your house and drink all your coffee.
I choose my cousin by name. I'm sorry, Andreas, but the Stevens have to stick together.
It's true. It's true. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this episode of the Dual Screens podcast. Thank you so much, Stefan. This was a blast. I had a great time.
Thank you very much. It was
Yeah, thanks for not flaking on us.
Oh,
One last one before the end.
Yeah, no, you mean like missing it? Like, it's just my morning and I forget about it. I didn't get out of bed, That almost happened, but then the alarm told me, hey, in 15 minutes, you have this thing. So.
Better brush your teeth.
Yeah, better get ready.
Folks,
Take the 3-year-old here.
If you want to follow the show, we are on social media at NDS Podcast. I am at BatChild27. Andy is at PantsGuy. Where can everybody find you, Stefan?
Where can you find me? I have a Twitter account. What is it? Do you guys follow me? I don't know. What is my name on there? Game Dev Ben2C, probably. You can follow me there on Twitter. We also have an active Discord for Bacon Switch. You can find us there. Please come on there. We've got competitions for art, as well as sometimes we give out keys for betas, things like this. So please follow us and subscribe for the newsletter for Bacon Switch. And just let's bring some puns. That's important. Let's do it.
Oh, the puns will come. If you want to join our Facebook group, it's facebook.com/group/dualscreenspodcast. You could also follow us on Facebook at dualscreens.com, DOTCOM. You can follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/dualscreenstreams, on YouTube at youtube.com/dualscreens.tv. Our theme song, Retro Chatter, is by Bradley Parsons at Train Sound Studio. Andrew Douglas does all of our art. Matt Murray does our logos. Remember, folks, if you want to support us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/NDS podcast. You can go to dualscreens.com/store if you want to buy any of our merchandise. That is it. That's going to bring us to the end of this thing. It was awesome. Andy, this was an awesome show.
This was a great show. It really rose to the top. I think one of our best shows yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we got some German humor, we got that humor, we got all the good stuff.
I just want to end my life.
It was cooked all the way through, this one. It was a good one.
It wasn't a half-baked show,
No.
It was well done and not crummy at all.
Mm-hmm.
So #get baked.
Yeah, I want to get baked right now.
Yes, that would wake me up,
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, listeners. That is it. That's going to do it for us. Tune in on Friday for the final episode of Andy Explains It All. Tune in on Monday for the Dual Screens Games Cast. That is going to do it for us. Thank you, guys. And as always, please be excellent to each other.
Yes.